All right, welcome back to another episode of Community Coffee Time. Woo! All right, I'm here with my co-host Queenie.
Hi,
She's settling
Queenie.
in. Yeah, and my friend Christine, who's a yoga therapist in the Denver area.
Hello.
Welcome, welcome. Well, to start, I have an iced coffee and a Halloween mug.
I love it. I
What are
have
you
a
drinking?
hot coffee. This is actually your recipe. It got a little pumpkin spice
We both got
with
pumpkin
some half and
spice.
half. Yes. It's so good.
Feeling the fall season. I love it.
Yes.
Well, to
Yeah.
start, if you don't mind, could you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you do? And then we'll dive more into yoga therapy.
Yeah. So my name's Christine Devereaux and I own Spectrum Yoga. So this is a kind of adapted and therapeutic yoga service. I teach small group classes as well as one-on-one private therapeutic yoga sessions. I also do some work in like medical settings, therapy settings, and school settings. But the bulk of my work is working with parents and their kids in group and one on one settings. So basically, I take yoga and not just the poses, all of yoga, and then I adapt it to make it accessible to kids, which usually is just coming up with fun activities and games to make it accessible. And then you can make it even more accessible with the adaptations of adapting yoga poses, concepts, and breath work and meditations as well. And so that is basically what I do. Um, I mean, there's more, but I feel like I could talk about it for hours. So, that's in a nutshell, what I do.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. So
Yeah.
let's dive in. And I feel like you've started like just by telling about what you do. How would you describe what yoga therapy is?
Yeah, so there's an official definition of yoga therapy if people want to go learn more. It's on the IAYT website, so International Association of Yoga Therapists. I would describe it, it's a pretty broad definition on their website, but I would describe it as the purposeful use of yoga for individuals with varying needs. So we work a lot in the medical settings and we work a lot with people um, who do have diagnoses or who have specific challenges. And so in the yoga therapy training, it's an 800-hour program. And at the end, actually, you have 1,000 hours, um, which varies from other yoga trainings, such as like kids yoga or adaptive yoga. And not saying any are better than the other, just noting the differences. And those can be about 25 to 95-hour trainings. So there is a huge difference. I've been in this program since 2016 and I'm still not graduated yet. So um, it's pretty lengthy and in depth. We learn about in depth anatomy, physiology, psychology, working in the medical settings, contraindications of yoga poses, breath work, and even of meditations. They can be contraindicating for people with PTSD specifically. So my very broad definition, or more specific than the broad definition, would be that we use yoga purposefully for the individual in front of us, and if it's a group setting, the people in front of us. So we do intake forms, and there's 12 different diagnostic tools within yoga therapy that we apply, and then we do, of course, asana, which is poses. We do pranayama, breath work, meditations, visualization, and we also bring in yamas and niyamas, which we can talk about in a little bit too. So these are all part of the 8 limbs of yoga. So we do that in a one-on-one or group therapy session for those individuals, and we track goals over time. And we use the diagnosis and the Western kind of approach to get more information, and then we work with the individual using the yoga lens approach, which is the 5 kosha model, which we can chat about too. I don't know, I don't want to get too
Yeah.
chatty or off, but so yoga therapy basically uses all of what yoga is, not just poses, not just a couple popular breath work techniques, to work with the individual as a whole and on all levels of their being, including breath, energy, psycho-emotional well-being, their awareness, and their physical body. So yeah, I feel like I wanted to go in like 10 different directions, but that's yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I loved how you kind of like described how there's different yoga certifications and they all have their different purposes and have different hour lengths and training. Because I feel like if somebody was interested in like wanting to go deeper with yoga themselves, like I wouldn't know necessarily, except for talking with you, like where to go next or what to do next. So there's those different kind of paths as professionals too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and it gets tricky because it's like it's a 25-hour program, it's a 95-hour program. Oh, I'm 95 hours certified. I'm 200 hours certified. And so what does all of that mean to people not in the yoga world? Not much. I mean, it's pretty all over the place. So, it's a lot has to do with the practitioner's direct experience and how much they're learning outside of their trainings as well. So, a kid's yoga training 25-hour to 95-hour is the typical kids yoga training. They're really great because they teach you how to adapt yoga into playful, accessible ways. And then when you go into your 200-hour training, that will help you understand more of yoga. You start getting into the 8 limbs of yoga and you start diving deeper into each of the 8 limbs typically. All of them vary. And that's another difference between then you get into the 800-hour, the yoga therapy program. It's a accredited program and none of the other ones are accredited. So that means there's a level of consistency among all yoga therapists that you're not going to have, again, not good or bad, but it's just the 200-hour and below, and even the 500-hour, there's 500-hour too, and below are not accredited programs. So, but once you start getting into yoga therapy, you start learning about the therapeutic applications. We are taught a lot by medical doctors as well as yoga therapists, a lot of medical doctors who are yoga therapists. So you get that medical setting um, education. We learn about, cardiovascular and respiratory illnesses and how yoga can work with those and help those, as well as how it can hurt those as well, how it can exacerbate some of those things. So you dive deeper into the person, you dive deeper into the science, you dive deeper into medical settings, and you dive deeper into contraindications, as well as a deeper dive into philosophy. We learn about the Yoga Sutras more and that's what I was going to say earlier is traditionally yoga was taught in a one-on-one setting for each individual. So yoga therapy is very much a part of yoga tradition and its vast history of over 5,000 years old. So those are kind of the differences. If people want to dive in, I think there's no bad starting place. And just knowing that you'll be a lifelong student. There's so much to yoga that um, you'll always be learning, and it's really fun.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. All
Yeah.
right. So if I like was coming to you for yoga therapy, like what are kind of the goals that you're assessing? I feel like you did touch on a couple of them earlier. Are those like the same, that kind of list that you were listing earlier of like well-being, like physical? Are those kind of the goal domains?
Yeah. So the it's a different kind of perspective, so it's hard to talk to that exactly. So what we do is we ask the if and I work primarily with children, so I'm just going to go with that lens. I ask the parent what they would like to see. What are their goals for their kid? I ask the child if they're able to um, respond verbally or non-verbally, what they want to get out of this, what's their goals, and then I do these intake forms, and I will have my own goals too. So it's a very collaborative approach for that individual. And so, as far as the intake form, we follow the five kosha model, and we also use Ayurvedic um, aspects as well, such as Vata, Pitta, Kapha. So after we do, I feel like I'm going to talk for a while, so chime in if I'm not making sense. Um, so to start, let's start with the five kosha
Yeah,
model.
let's dive in
So
because we wanted to
this
talk
is,
about
yeah,
koshas, 8 limbs. Let's dive
eight
into all of that
limbs.
that applies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, and also when I'm talking about this is all yoga. So I wanted to make that point that yoga is far more than poses and a couple breathing techniques. This is yoga, 5 koshas, 8 limbs, yoga sutras, and all of that. So when I'm looking at the 5 koshas, we've got the Annamaya kosha, which is the physical body. So we're looking at imbalances, we call them in yoga, imbalances, and strengths in that area. So say you're coming to me and you have a headache. That would be pain in your head. That would go in that category. So I would put that in that category. Then we have the pranayama kosha, which is the breath energy body. So it's what's your energy like? Are you in a depressed mood and hard to get out of bed? So that's low energy. Or is your mind racing a lot and you can't seem to focus? That's high energy, lots of movement. And then also, how is your breath? Are you breathing from your chest? Are you breathing from your stomach? Are you breathing from both? Are you breathing from your nose, your mouth? Are you shallowly breathing, and are you reverse breathing? So we do a pranayama assessment. I do one with every one-on-one client that I see, because that usually helps most of the reasons why they're coming to me. What or why they're coming to me. And then we've got the Manamaya kosha, which is the psycho-emotional body. So how is this person experiencing life through their thoughts and emotions? So it's more than the diagnosis, which I was saying before. Everybody, you can have 10 people in a room with the same diagnosis, and everybody's going to be experiencing that diagnosis differently. So that individual they all may have, a cardiac disorder or another diagnosis, and they're going to be presenting differently when we're looking at the whole. So then we get into the Manamaya kosha. So what kind of thoughts are they having? Are they mostly negative, self-talk, judgmental of others and self? Are they irritable, angry, sad? So what's going on inside, so the psycho-emotional body? And then we get to the Vijnanamaya kosha, which is the witness body. And so it's said by many that yoga is the science of awareness, and this is where this kind of happens. We have this seer uh, always present. So we're doing things and we see things and we perceive things, and then there's this seer that's kind of always present. That this is starts to get woo woo, but it makes a lot of sense. That their perspective can't be clouded. So if you go back to the Manamaya kosha and you have somebody who is negatively self-talking most of the day, every single day, judgmental of others, and angry, you can put them in one situation and they're going to see that through that lens, through that emotional lens. And once we kind of clear those emotions, not necessarily getting rid of them, but understanding them and working with them, and then they are more responsive, less angry, less irritable, less judgmental, more compassionate, and put them in the same situation, they're going to see that situation a lot different. So that's like the Vijnanamaya kosha is the witness body that we all have, and it can be clouded by thoughts, emotions, experiences, traumas, and so on. And then we have the Anandamaya kosha, which is the bliss body. So this can be your faith, your religion, your hobbies. What are you doing for fun? What brings you joy and bliss in life? And so even though they're all compartmentalized, each impact each other. So if we're working with that anger, and we get rid of that anger, you came to me because you're having migraines, you might see those migraines either less intense or less frequent or completely go away. So it wasn't the physical body that we were working with. We were working with the psycho-emotional body, but it impacted the physical body, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And you've shown me a picture before how it's almost like one of those Russian egg dolls. So like the
Yes,
physical body is like
exactly.
the first layer and it goes out like this. So you can see how each
Mm-hmm.
layer kind of affects kind of going in, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And we work a lot with the physical body because we can touch it. And that's a lot of the times people are going into yoga or going into yoga therapy because they have a physical ailment. And through working with these 4 other subtle bodies and not the physical body, although we will be working with the physical body through poses and to a lot of time that's why they came. They want to do the poses. But we're also working with these 4 other subtle bodies, and oftentimes those are what's impacting the physical body. And that's where you'll see results. But it's a really great entry point, as well as kind of awareness tool for the student. So if you had the headache and then after 8 weeks you don't have the headache, there's a progress, an
Right.
experiential kind of assessment that took place there. Um, so yeah, it all impacts everything, and uh, and and that's what yoga is. Yoga is means yoke or union, and it's union of mind, body, and spirit. So the koshas really tie into that. I mean, everything in yoga does. And so there is no compartmentalization in yoga. So even when we get into the 8 limbs, those impact the koshas too, and the koshas impact those as well. So you can start to see how through this intake form, and that's just one part, and then we get into doshas and we get into all, other kinds of areas and pranayama assessments. It's all the whole being, the whole human in front of us that we're working with.
Yeah. So that sounds like a lot to assess. I don't know, since I'm not a yoga therapist. Is your assessment like typically one session, or does it take like a few?
Yeah. So, well, because I work with kids, I try to get an initial intake. I do a discovery call with the parent, and then I get uh, an initial intake form on the computer. And then we do an in-person or like online, and then we do an in-person assessment. So if I were working with adults, the typical assessment is an hour and a half to 2 hour long session with adults. But working with kids with autism and ADHD, I can't, that's not fair to them to be doing that. So through the discovery call, the online intake form, and then the in-person that happens. And then also with yoga therapy, we're reassessing at every session. So there's, we're all different at different times. So what works
Right.
last week may not be helpful this week. And especially with the kiddos with autism, sensory processing challenges, and ADHD, we can dysregulate them through yoga poses and breath work and meditations very easily. So if we're not checking in with them and helping them cultivate their own awareness skills, or helping their parents cultivate awareness skills with them to self advocate how they're doing prior to a session, then we can cause dysregulation. And so that assessment piece is happening at every session, on a more subtle level. Of course, I'm not going to have them fill out an intake form every
Right.
time, but on a more subtle level. And then we're adapting throughout the session, every session.
Right. I think that makes a lot of sense too with the koshas you were talking about, because like, emotionally, that can vary throughout the week for everybody. And then like if something happens in life as it does, that,
Yeah.
then you might have to address a completely new goal.
Exactly, exactly. And so I have a client that I'm seeing for flexibility. And so we are doing lots of movement, strengthening, and flexibility. And that also ties in with emotions. They didn't want to be there. There's a rigidity. You often see that in body and mind if there's flexibility things, but it shows up in the body more clearly. And then she was doing really great. And then one session she came in and she was just exhausted from all of the things going on right now during COVID at school, unpredictable schedules, routines and settings. So the most beneficial thing for her was not movement, it was rest. And so we did restorative poses, relaxing pranayama, which also supports flexibility. There's just a different lane or path to get to that goal. But like you said, which is such a great point, is that emotional body is almost the determiner of how we're going to approach this session. If they're not interested or they're tired, or we have to work with that and adapt.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
So I have some thoughts, and then Queenie's also. I had to like sneak and turn my piano off because she's starting to rub her head on it,
Oh my
and
gosh.
so I caught her before she went bling bling.
Right. Good catch.
And I forgot to say, if people have been watching this before, they'll know it's up. I'm looking down a lot, just kind of keep an eye on the comments. My mom's watching.
Oh,
Hello.
hi. Hi, Bonnie's mom.
And then Queenie's new game is to get tangled in my headphones too. Oh goodness. Yeah, sorry to take us out of it, but yeah, that
No,
was
no,
so
it's
much,
great.
so many good things for sure. So I guess how about we go into what the 8 limbs are and kind of how that all ties into.
Sure. Okay, so the 8 limbs are kind of all encompassing of yoga, and they are found in the Yoga Sutras. And so I'll go through which each one is, but essentially we use them as starting with the first limb and going all the way to the eighth. However, it's also been some teachers of yoga's perspective that if you're doing any of the 8 limbs, you're doing yoga. So, like I was saying, yoga is far more than poses and breath work that we see. So, starting with the first limb, there's the yamas. These are kind of self care guidelines. And an example is ahimsa, which is nonviolence. And then they take it further into saying non harming. So that even includes your thoughts, words, and actions. So non harming thoughts. And a lot of the kiddos that we see have, negative self talk. So working with the yamas can be really impactful in their life where they're not doing poses, they're not doing breathing, but they're being aware of how they're talking to themselves inside their head and cultivating that. And that could be more beneficial than any yoga pose, depending on the kid. And so there are 4 more, and we don't need to get into all of them. There's a great book by, what's her name? Deborah Adele, The Yamas and Niyamas. If people want to dive into them more, I really recommend that book. It's great. And she does a great job of bringing them into current and like modern life and how you would apply them to modern life. And there's great journaling activities and things that she proposes. So moving on to the second limb, there's the niyamas, and these are more like social guidelines and how do we um, conduct ourselves as part of society. And so you can look at the yamas and niyamas kind of like the 10 Commandments. Although yoga is not a religion, but it is these guidelines that you're cleaning the environment around you. Um, you're taking showers. We use like saucha as one. We use that in yoga class. You clean your mat at the end. That's yoga. You're still doing yoga by cleaning your mat at the end because that's saucha. Um, so there's all 10 of each, or 5 of each, 10 total. And then we have, so there's yamas, niyamas, uh, asana. So everybody knows asana, which is the poses of yoga. And those can be active or there's no passive, but restorative yoga as well. And then pranayama. So that's the breathing techniques typically, but then you get into the word prana, which is your life energy. And you can see how breathing would, uh, you know, um, marry really well with your life energy. You need breath to live.
Right.
Um, and then it also directly impacts your energy. So you can do different types of breathing techniques to raise your energy, lower your energy. And the breathing practices should really be done with reverence and should also because they're tying your body and your mind together. So through the breath, and you can bring that into science. That's the vagus nerve innervates the lungs and it brings body to mind. And so with the vagus nerve, 80% of the communication goes from body to mind and 20% from mind to body. So when you're working with your breath, you're communicating to your brain, and that's in turn connecting your body and mind together. And that's just one example, and that's through like the medical lens. And then, okay, so what do we have? Yamas, niyamas, asana, pranayama, pratyahara. This is withdrawing from the senses. So we work a lot in yoga therapy and Ayurveda more so, but with the 5 senses. Of course, we're working with all 8 senses and we can do that. But traditionally, we're just focusing on the 5 sense organs. And we use those to balance ourselves. So, and cultivate awareness. So, what am I taking in through my eyes? If it's news 100% of the day, that's going to create imbalances. That's not a healthy thing to do. What am I taking in through my eyes and ears? What am I eating? What am I touching? What's the temperature around me? Things like that. So, and what am I smelling? So we use those to cultivate balance. And so once you've worked with the yamas and the niyamas and got yourself kind of balanced ethically, socially, um, and yeah, pretty much ethically, I would say. And then you start moving your body, and then you tie in your breath, and then we can withdraw completely from the senses. So that's going inward to Purusha, the inner light of awareness that's always with us. So I was kind of talking about that with the Vijnana Maya Kosha, this awareness that's always there within us. And so we can block out all of our senses and go within and start cultivating that practice, which is really hard. So that's why those first four are really important to help us get to pratyahara, withdrawing from the senses. And then there's dhyana, dhyarana, and samadhi. So all of those are forms of meditation. There's focus and concentration and meditation, and then a state of bliss. So um, those are basically, we could get into those, but they get more profound than I feel like I'm able to speak on. Um, but so those are the 8 limbs. And so if we do them, I think we typically work with the first four a lot in my classes and my sessions, because that once you get to pratyahara, it's really challenging. Especially working with kids with sensory processing challenges. If you just shut off all their senses, it's like they're flying dark for a lot of them. A lot of them, though, do like that because if they're having sensory overload. So
Right.
it all depends. But when we start working with, non harming and truthfulness and contentment and gratitude and cleaning up after yourself and really focusing inward instead of outward, you're already prepping for that pratyahara. And so those are the yamas and niyamas. And then you work on your body, like moving your body, not how it looks in the pose, not what you're getting afterward, whether it's strength or flexibility, although those are common goals. You're working with your body and cultivating body awareness. Again, focusing on yourself. And then you're getting to the pranayama. So all of it builds up to support that pratyahara to then support the other three. But when we talk about yoga, I feel like it's really important to talk about the 8 limbs, and it's really important to teach them too, and also to practice them ourselves. Because without that direct experience, we can't teach effectively. We don't know how to cue, or we won't understand why we're doing something. Um, and then we'll start to see too, when we're in our favorite yoga pose, we're going to experience it differently because we've done all this other internal work, the other limbs before it. And so you start to experience your body and your other external experiences differently, which is really cool.
Awesome. A lot of good
Yeah.
information in there.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not too much, and I hope it makes sense.
I think so. So would you
I
say with
hope.
your students and with the 8 limbs, are you trying to work through all 8 or just kind of progressing and seeing like what's helping the goals that you're seeing with them?
Mm-hmm.
And not necessarily like if they want to go that far, that's awesome. But like is it more you're meeting their goals kind of in those first 4 or so, like you were saying?
Yeah, and it really does take years to get up to even pranayama. So getting to pratyahara is a long practice. But yeah, it's who's in front of you. What are they wanting? What are they needing? What's helpful? What's not? And then moving forward that way. Um, a lot of my students, and so that's again like making these things accessible and making them fun. So I've created meditations that are like sensory journeys so that they feel like they're reading a story, but they're meditating and having a sensory experience that's calming. And they get to, a lot of the kids that I work with never experience calm. They're always at a 10 or an 8, and so for them to experience calm can either be very uncomfortable and they don't want to do it, or can be extremely therapeutic all on its own and impact every part of their life, including sleep, friendships, and so on. So making it fun is really important. So what do they need? What do they want? How do we make it accessible? And then go from there. And since we're cultivating our own awareness, being aware the entire time of how that's affecting them, watching their breath. So that's a really big cue. If someone's breathing hard, that means this is too challenging. So back it up as far as like a physical pose.
Right.
If they're like talking through a pose and they're mindless, it's too easy. So make it harder. So there's always this constant awareness of what that student needs, even if they don't have the awareness skills themselves to advocate or tell you what's going on inside their body. There are other cues that we're paying attention to try to guide them in the right direction for their ultimate wellness, and ultimately to leave class or leave our session and go into life and more happy and content.
Awesome. Yay.
Yeah.
I love it. And
Yeah.
we've talked about it a bit before with Ahimsa. I just think that first limb is so cool because I think it's definitely in music therapy. We don't call it Ahimsa, but like so many of the same, doing no harm. I think many professionals can agree, like, oh, like, and then you said it's yoga, so
Yes,
in a way we're
exactly.
doing yoga, not yoga therapy, obviously, but like
Yeah,
taking
no,
these
but
principles into our own practices to help improve them too.
exactly. I think, well, all therapy is good, but I love music therapists because everything you guys do is yoga. Like
Which is so
everything.
cool.
Yeah, I mean, you guys do a ton of breathing. If you're doing a wind instrument, it requires an immense focus and concentration, which is one of the 8 limbs, and the non-harming aspect, and then the pleasant auditory sensory effect of what you're doing. So it's all very holistic and very much yoga, in my opinion.
Yeah, which I love that.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, I'm
Yeah.
doing yoga all
Yes, you are.
day.
Yeah, all day. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, and in my own practice, I've started doing kind of mantras with some of my morning poses, and
Great.
would that fall under like that first limb too? Um, Usually there are things
Yeah.
like, I have everything I need to be successful, like
Love it.
just kind of things like
Yes.
that.
So that would definitely be like part of ahimsa. You're doing not harming and you're actually making an active action to cultivate peace and contentment within you, which then impacts the whole. It impacts every relationship or interaction you have that day. So that's great. But it's also moving into the limbs of yoga, moving up into pranayama. So mantra oftentimes requires a lot of breath work.
Mm.
It depends on the mantra. So if you're doing affirmations, that's one thing, but it's very single focused. Excuse me. And it's really good for cultivating awareness inside a healthy mindset. You're rewiring neural pathways just from thought. So there's a lot that mantras are really big. And then the repetition too is supportive as well on a systemic level.
And that's like music too. That repetition kind
Exactly.
of key, that yoga and music.
Yes. And mantras too, because you're using your voice, which is the vagus nerve. Also, you're creating vibration and you're activating that parasympathetic. So, um, yeah, you can bring mantras into music, and they are a form of music, actually. So, depending on how you incorporate them and implement them. But yeah, I love that you're doing that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a little tie-in, I think. And I think you're making this point that yoga is not just the poses. And so, like, for people who want to do your services, I think that's so much great information. And then just even for people in their own practices at home to realize, like, oh, like I'm doing yoga and I didn't even know. I wasn't doing poses, but maybe, people are doing mantras and then they could realize, like, oh, this is all yoga. It's all tying together.
It's all, yep. It's not compartmentalized. And again, it's union of body, mind, and spirit. So if that's bringing you to that place, it's yoga.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we tied music and yoga together a lot, and that's not a hint at all, is it, Christine?
Tell me more, Bonnie.
We have some things up our sleeves, so people
Yes.
watch for it. We've been working on a course, that's not a secret. So there's information on that on both our websites, but keep an eye out for things. We're thinking about doing some things soon too, I think. So
Yes. Yes.
coming
Hopefully we'll
soon.
have some fun things for you guys. Yes.
Yes, and I want to make sure I don't forget, everyone needs to check out Christine's YouTube today. There's so many good meditations, so many like quick poses, and I've done like sometimes it's more for kids like your clients, but I've done a lot of the videos too.
Yeah.
They're so accessible for every age and everybody, and a lot of them are fun and have awesome backgrounds. So it's a great resource for you, for your students, for your family. Everyone go subscribe right now.
Thank you. Yeah, I try to make them to where all ages could access them. Some of them, maybe not. Some, others, maybe they can. So, um, especially in meditations, especially during these times, and finding some relaxation and calm. And you can do them as families too. There's some fun like challenges on there that you could do as a family. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
thanks for that
Yay.
shout out.
Of course, and I'll try to put some links from this later in the description, so that will definitely be in there, and I'll see if I can go back and catch some of those book resources that you were talking about
Oh
too,
yeah, I'll
and link
send you
those for
them.
people. Yeah, that'd be
Cool.
great.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we will end with an activity, but before then, is there anything else you want to mention, or and then after that, how to contact you, and we'll make sure that's in the show notes too.
Yeah, I know. I think that's all. I'm on. You can check out my website. I have some sensory yoga resources there, and YouTube, Instagram, and yeah, to contact me. I'm not on Instagram as much right now. I'm hoping soon I'll be back on more regularly. But to contact, you can just go to my website and hit the contact button. Yeah, and you can learn more about classes and private sessions. And I'm going to start actually also doing parent consultations as well. I haven't set that up yet. So, but yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, a lot of good stuff, and we'll make sure your website and everything. I'll get those added later to
Cool.
the
No
description.
worries.
Awesome. So we're gonna end, I believe, with some yoga bingo,
Yay.
and we'll find a way to attach this too.
Yeah.
I'll have to. I might have to make it
Oh,
an
you know
image.
what? Yeah, that, or I can add it. Well, we'll talk.
Okay. Hopefully, this will be accessible soon for everybody.
Yes. Okay, so this is a Halloween yoga game board. And we're going to play it a little bit like yoga. You can play this in so many different ways. I have similar game boards on my website in the under the store link and the movement and mindfulness creator kit, but not the Halloween bingo. That's not included. But bingo or like these board games, so they're included. But basically, there's like 5 different ways you can play this, and I'm sure as you guys go along, you'll create your own ways how to use this game board. So Bonnie and I are going to play, and since we're virtual, we're just going to use our hands for this.
Okay, that's good with the cat, probably.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was like, we can't really get our whole bodies unless we're really far away. So basically, what we're going to do is Bonnie's going to roll the dice. And so if this were in a group setting, you could do it one-on-one as well. Yeah, someone would roll the dice, you would count the squares, and then whatever square you land on, you would do that pose. So this is a really good introductory body awareness and mindfulness game to it's like a really good warm-up game, basically. As you can see, it also requires a lot of creativity, problem solving, and self expression, which is really providing those opportunities for kids that we work with is really important to me. So, if you want to roll the dice, we'll kind of explain it more as we go along too.
Okay, and you said whatever number we count, and that's what we'll land
You
on.
can,
Okay, so
yes.
like
And
you,
so the way
so
it works
in real life, I
too.
would probably need 2 dice, right?
So, yes, you can use 2 dice or 2 die. We were talking, or so the way the mindfulness comes in is say you only have 1 dice and you roll a 4, you're going to have to remember that that's the spot you left off last time. And then you'll
Oh,
continue counting
like
the
from
last time. And
there.
then it gets really hard as you go and you have to start back up at the top. So it gets really challenging and forces the students to really focus on their own board and not everybody else's, and track where they were going and use some executive functioning and all of that. So yeah,
Awesome.
so it'll
All
work
right.
with one, but you could do two as well.
I guess I'll roll this on my piano.
Sorry to make you roll.
Oh, you're good. I got a 5.
5. Okay. Okay, so I landed on the witch. Oh, I think we have the same board,
Yeah, we
by
have the
the way.
same, which is
Okay.
like, I think that'll be good for this.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do.
Oh, a witch.
I'm gonna do like I'm holding a broomstick.
Okay, I was thinking more of the hat somehow.
It's hard to do with your hands.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Good.
The witch's
Yep.
head.
And then what I do is have students hold it for 3 breaths and then we roll. So, but all right. So roll again. And then they can take turns rolling if you're in a group setting.
Right.
But
And I don't have it set up today. Sometimes online I'll use 2 cameras. So like in a case like this, I could go to the
oh,
dice cam and like then you could actually see what number it lands on.
yeah.
So sorry I didn't have that set up
I
for
love
this,
that.
but I would use like my phone as a different camera. And there's I use
That's great.
Droid Cam is the app because that works on Android.
Awesome.
2. All right, so this is 2 from the witch.
2 from the witch. Bat.
Bat. I got it. It's a bat.
Yeah.
Oh, this is
I'm
an
gonna
actual,
do
the actual Vudra. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
This is
Love it.
Garuda.
And then
Yeah.
you could have them, yeah. Another fun, so you could do like 3 breaths or like a fun fact about bats or whatever they land on. And so you can make it a social game or a calming game.
Cool.
All right. And then we're going to try to get 4 in a row here. So we'll
Okay.
see.
I rolled another 2.
Awesome.
Kind of the moon.
So a crescent moon.
I'd probably just go like full into it.
Oh, good one. Yeah.
Get those side body stretches. I know I'm doing more than my hands, I guess.
Oh no. Those are just the guidelines. You do it however. Yeah. No,
Perfect. Yeah.
Arms too. Yeah. And so you can see too how you could do this game seated, for people who use wheelchairs or in a classroom setting. It's just really adaptable.
Awesome. And so you said when you play with students, you'll try to get 4 in a row. Like, is that the bingo?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like it could go on for a pretty good
for
amount of time.
And then it could go on. Yeah. It usually takes 10, 15 minutes. So we don't need to do all of that, but you can start to see. And it's really funny. Like the kids will be like, how am I supposed to be a bird?
I like
the
vampire one. I'd
me
go
too.
like this.
I was gonna say. Yeah,
also, is this like a sideways ghost?
Yeah. Because as we would play them in class, if every character was upright, they would all do like star pose. So I was like trying to make them think how you could be these things, not just through star or standing. So yeah, because you can see these are very similar. So
right.
Put the little ghost.
I love that. Side. What an awesome creativity exercise, just in general. Like to come up with those poses.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to really think and challenge yourself. And like I was saying, like kids will be like, how am I supposed to be a bird? And then they'll do something amazing that you never ever would have thought of in your life. And it's so fun. We love it. They laugh and yeah, it's fun. So if you guys do download it, it's only the one. So if you do play it like bingo, everybody will get a bingo at the same time. So just note that.
And that works sometimes. I've done that with groups where it's kind of like me versus the group, but like it just, and so we would all be working towards that common goal. So I feel like that could definitely still be really helpful.
Yeah. And then especially for kids who are working towards not being as competitive or judgmental or things like that, then everybody wins and they're, There's not like, I won, I was the first, or so and so is still going. It's just everybody won at the same time.
Right.
So that
And they
can be
all
a
work
great,
towards it. Yeah.
exactly. And they all express themselves in different ways. And they had to pay attention to their board because you have to pay attention where you left off as it gets going. It gets uh, more and more difficult. But yeah, so there's a million ways you could play this, especially for music therapists. I was already thinking about ways you could tie
Yeah,
music
knowing
into
my
this.
brain, I'm like, how could I do this with the Monster Mash? Like, I'm always get stuck
Oh,
on that around
yes.
Halloween. Around Halloween, I'm just like, how can I make everything I do the
Everything.
Monster Mash?
Yes. You could definitely do something here. But um, yeah, if you do anything, let me know because I want to see how you adapt
Mm,
it. That would be fun.
yeah, probably like dancing and then like you roll and it freezes or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Or you can do each one as a dance move. So instead of
Yeah.
a static pose, how would you make it a dance move?
Oh
How would
man,
you do a
pumpkin would be
spider
hard.
dance
You
move?
gotta start like
Yeah,
somersaulting.
that would be very hard. You'd have to like roll.
You're like rolling on the ground.
Yeah.
I would love that though. Oh, that's a great
Sweet moves.
idea.
Yeah.
Oh, there's
So
a lot you could do with that.
there's so much. Yes. Yeah. So everybody enjoy. And if you guys make any on your own, tag us because we want to see.
Yes. That'd be so fun. Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
I'll make sure we'll work on getting that in the notes with everything in the
Great.
next
Yes.
couple of days or so. Make sure that's all updated. And yeah,
Awesome.
awesome. Well,
Cool. Well,
thanks for
thank
coming
you.
on today.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, another great episode. Well, we will get this posted. This will be posted on Facebook pretty shortly. And then we'll work on getting it on YouTube with all the information soon. But otherwise, yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Catch you guys in the next episode.